use mark recapture methods for the eels, with the use of flag nets, and for the perch we were going to use both electrofishing and gill nets. Another thing that we're planning to do, whether or not it's going to come to fruition is anybody's guess, but we're planning on building fish aggregation devices to target the juvenile perch, due to the fact that juvenile perch are inherently a nightmare to actually target. The adults are not so difficult, juveniles pain in the ass. Sorry. We also undertook basic water monitoring for the temperature and the dissolved oxygen. We also took nitrogen and phosphorus levels to try and get a handle on what's going on between now and 30 years ago, and we wanted to determine the ecosystem dynamics through isotope analysis. On top of that, I also did a rudimentary stomach analysis of the perch, and those were the methods we used. We used plankton toes, we used ponar grabs for benthic invertebrates, we took good and bottom grabs of as many macrophytes on the shore as we could, and we took tissue samples of anything that we believed would be in any of the diets of the eels or perch. So, what did we find? We found that between 1977 and 2017, not a lot has changed. There's still severe stratification going on, apparently a lot less so now than there was in 1977 when the Catchment Commission did their samples. What is weird with our sample in 2017 is the stratification patterns that are going on between 4 and 8 metres. I'm not sure exactly what's happening there, but I'm guessing it might have something to do with turbidity, mixing up the water column. We also found that nitrates and phosphorus have dropped significantly, down from 1.22 to 0.046 and 0.95 to 0.012. So obviously things are working. These legacies, farming legacies, are disappearing quite quickly. As far as mark recapture goes, we set out, we put 20 nets around the lake as randomly as we possibly could. However, it wasn't really pure randomness because 70% of the lake shoreline was covered with rapo, and trying to get holes into the sides of the lake was next to a nightmare. There's me in the top left corner, setting one. So what did we find? We found that the longfins are huge. I mean, that's an average size longfin right there. There's Brendan processing it. The idea was we take the length, we take the weight, and we take the fin clippings. We'd use that as a mark, but not only as a mark, as for isotope analysis later on. Our results basically showed that there were 853 short fins in the lake and 143 long fins. What's pretty bizarre about this, though, is that while you've got such a high difference in the numbers, in terms of the biomass down below, you can see whole lake biomass for the short fins is 560 compared to that of the long fins, which is 263. So in both biomass per hectare and whole lake biomass, the long fins are coming in relatively high with 32% of the total eel biomass, which when you compare that to Waikato lakes, that's quite significant because you'll never see any, well, you won't never, but typically you only see up to about 17% total. So what's going on there? Why is it so high? Well, the reason might possibly be is that, for starters, the way that we believe the longfins were first brought into the lake was not through natural means. They originally did a whole bunch of waterway construction projects around the region and translocated the eels into the lake itself. This is anecdotal evidence that I've talked to with some of the reserve managers. So as you can see down below, there's no longfin eels observed anywhere between 0 to 400, which would suggest there's no recruitment going on. Whereas when you compare that with the short fins up top, you can see that there's quite a few between the 100 to 350 class. And on top of that, we managed to get out, this was in winter, and we did a spotlight count of the inflow tributary. So what did we find? We found that there were kura there, which we didn't know originally, and we found that there was 14, off a 100 metre sampling site, we managed to find about 14 of them, and that was more or less the total amount of stream flow that we could actually sample without too much effort. So we're assuming that the biomass for kura is 14 per 100 metres squared, and Kokopu, both juvenile and adult, sits at about 73 per 100 metres squared. So we also managed to get the university's electrofishing boat in. We chose to do it at night, and we chose those 10 locations on the right there. It's not the best in the world, but you can sort of see that we managed to get a good distribution around the lake. We chose to do it at night because back in 2007 and 8, the university went down to the Lower Karori Reservoir in Wellington, did a whole bunch of perch sampling in both day and night. And as you can see, Basically, from K4 to K16, there's a difference of 2 to 31 times greater amount of yield between day versus night, with a mean of 14. So, obviously, if you can get 14 times more fish in a period of 12 hours, why not take it? So, frequencies came out relatively the same between the university's first trip in 2013 and ours. The numbers are quite significantly different. What you can see is that there's two clear cohorts going on between 70 to 110 and 130 to 170. All in all, we caught 1,003 fish. It was, the gill nets proved highly effective as well. We managed to get those in, and that managed to reckon about 210 individuals onto the total count. So, what did we find? We found that the results varied between locations and between fishing methods. So as you can see, electrofishing is very useful for targeting the juveniles. The gill netting's a lot better for targeting the adult classes. And even from site to site, we found during the electrofishing a great amount of variation in the the average length of location. So that can say something about the environmental conditions of the lake. We're not quite sure yet. We've obviously got to do a bit more work. So, as I mentioned earlier, we use the eel fin clippings as isotopes, and we use for perch, we use back white muscle tissue, which we took from them obviously after they've been killed. And we managed to work up a rudimentary single isotope analysis. So originally we tested for isotope homogeny by comparing a few results from the same individual. We found that overall all samples were pretty much homogeneous, so we could go ahead and use one sample for one individual. And this is more or less what we managed to work out. It's quite a dissociated food web. As you can see down below, you've got your plants, you've got your macrophytes, completely disassociated from the rest of the food chain. Up the top on the right, you can see you've got your large perch, your lonfin eels, your short fins, and your smaller perch, banded cocos, and a bit bizarre how snails managed to work their way in there, but they did. As you go down, you can see dragonfly larvae and the chironomids are sort of associated with that food chain, which means the trophic structure is going from A to B. But what's bizarre is that, in terms of perch at least, and banded coco, they predate predominantly on zooplankton, which you would think should be a clear-cut sort of chain of command. But we're seeing dissociation over there, sort of right to the left of zooplankton in the middle. Whether or not that was due to my sampling or just some bizarre trend that we don't know about yet is a bit unclear, but it's definitely something to think about. So I decided to cut open 194 perch and compare their stomachs to what we were seeing in the isotopes. And what was pretty bizarre, as I said before with the zooplankton, as you can see right up in the middle there, there's 149 individuals out of 194 that we found with zooplankton in their stomachs. 75% of 75 out of 194 had chironomids, and then after that it was just a mixture of detritus, which I assume got in during chironomid foraging, and a few other bits and pieces that never really compromised much of the food web. So it was quite a monospecific diet. The bulk of it obviously consists of those two. We had a high average fullness of 77% between all three categories. We had 2.6% of the 194 actually being empty, and of that, 10% of the 180 to 249 millimeter size class was actually empty, suggesting that as the perch get larger, the foraging efficiency goes down. On top of that, there was not a single observed case of cannibalism, which I found quite bizarre, because we'd assumed originally that the food web might not be very enriched. However, if it were the case, you'd expect to see cannibalism in the larger individuals, but there was not a single case. So, realistically, we could say potentially that it's a very good, stable food web, and the adults are obviously flourishing quite well. Thank you very much. Any questions?